Should the Saints ignore defense when thinking about how or who or where we're going with the first pick, number 14 overall in the upcoming draft? Well, they damn sure better not ignore the defense. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. The defensive depth chart's a little more straightforward than the offense was. For the most part, still the same premise, kind of highlighting the guys that are likely to be here for 2024 and 2025. One thing right off the bat I need to talk about, I kind of had to come with a little different color scheme when talking about Pete Werner and Willie Gay. And this is basically based on my opinion that I think Willie Gay was brought in to compete with Pete Werner for the job this year opposite to Mario Davis. Pete, really good run defender and he is entering his last year of his rookie deal, but kind of hasn't really worked out in some of the stuff that Willie Gay excels at, which is pass defense and rushing the quarterback, spying the quarterback. The athletic difference from Willie Gay to Pete Werner, but they could both entirely stick around depending on what Demario does. Demario still the ageless wonder, still playing at a high level, but he's the point of his career where even if he's playing at a high level, he could still decide to hang it up and walk away and do other stuff. So no real need here for this year, but it's just an interesting situation that you have to keep your eye on. And you find that a lot in this defensive depth chart. Tyrann Mathieu is not the elite player we remember with Arizona and Kansas City. And as a Saints fan, I'm 100% guilty of keep viewing him like he's still 25, 26, 27, and also not in his 30s. I think he's going to, that deal is that he just reworked is to keep him here for 2 more years. And even though he's not elite like he used to be, he's still one of the better safeties in the league. And he's paired up with Jordan Howden entering his second year, who was a day three kind of flyer draft pick last year for the Saints, but they like him a lot. He's shown, worked his way into the defensive rotation last year, got some playing time and showed signs that he belongs in the NFL, and the team is kind of high on his abilities and looking for him to step up and take more of a role. So it's not a bad combination for those two, and they're likely in the plans for the next 2 years. Cornerback and slot corner, Taylor's interesting because we know he's very good on the outside and can make plays there. Last year they tried him in the slot. He wasn't as effective. In fact, got benched for a while, but they're still hoping that he puts it all together and can kind of be what CD Deuce was a few years ago in that position. But he's also important because Lattimore and the Saints have what it sounds like a very contentious relationship right now. It sounds like they're trying to work it out and give it another go, but he could be in the future plans for the next 2 years. They could move on from him after this year. They could move on from him prior to the season. There's some contract stuff going on here that some Saints fans, oh, well, we can trade him before the draft. I just don't think that's possible. Adebo has played very well, but he's on his rookie deal. He's got a contract year coming up. He keeps playing well. He's going to get expensive. So the Saints would have to look into some type of extension or letting them test free agency. So Taylor becomes very important to the Saints if one or both of these guys move on in the next 2 years. He's pretty much all we have. There's very good veteran depth and some young guys at corner, linebacker, safety. Some of these guys like Amadi can play multiple positions back there. So I think we're in fairly good shape outside of the defensive line, which I say for last for a reason. But I can see anywhere along in here for different reasons where if the right guy's available in the draft, if the right day 3 guy is available, where they could supplement in here, and I could also see later on adding a veteran, possibly a safety, to the mix. But I don't think you're gonna see anything in the first 2 rounds of number 14 or number 45 in necessarily any of these positions, unless somebody really stands out to them, like a safety or a corner where they're like, "Well, we're gonna bring him in now. He's gonna play this year. He'll be part of the future plans," and a possible replacement for the question marks kinda surrounding Honey Badger, Lattimore, and Adebo. The defensive line, not quite the mess the offensive line is. Granderson solid. Proceed looks like we finally hit somewhat on a first round pick. And if he keeps developing his run defense and catches it up with the pass rush he brings, he's going to be a very good addition. And it's only his second year, so there's no rule that says he can't keep getting better. Shepard and Saunders are going to pretty much play opposite of him. I think they were a little disappointed. They were both brought in as free agents last year. I think Saints a little disappointed. Not that they played horrible, but I just think it was they expected more than what they got out of them. And again, that they also are allowed to get better. So they kind of step up. Passing out a veteran who can actually back up both on the inside and the outside. Solid guy. Your question marks really here, these two. Chase Young and Cameron Jordan, both with injury issues. Young will know more prior to training camp, but if the neck surgery went well, he should be fine. But he's basically on a 1-year prove it deal. So there's no guarantee that A, he'll be completely healthy, or B, even if he hasn't plays well, if they'll be able to bring him back. Cam, because of his contract, much like Lattimore, there's just not a whole lot you can do with him right now other than keep him on your roster. But I think his contract's in the situation where I think he's here the next 2 years. So it's kind of a hope and a prayer that he gets healthy and they can figure out a way to use him that'll keep him healthy. And until such point where whatever happens, he takes a pay cut, we have to move on, he retires, any combination thereof, it's at a point where it doesn't hurt the Saints' money situation, and it doesn't hurt the play situation on the field because you're keeping a veteran around on the roster because it's just too painful financially to let him leave early or to move on from him early. I am getting so tired of saying former first rounder who's been disappointing, but there he is again, Peyton Turner, another one. Another injury issue his whole career, basically. Um, yeah, unless some miracle happens this year, I think this will be his last year with the Saints. So if they're going to do anything in the first round that isn't offensive, it's got to be up here. It has to be an edge rusher or another young complement to Brian Brzee. And there's a couple guys in this area where we're talking 14 in the first that kind of fit the bill. We'll talk about them in a second. But overall, I still feel Saints are going to be going offense in the first round if they can, and 45 and definitely day 3 picks from 150 on are going to probably lean more towards addressing the defense than the first round. So, in looking at the kind of perceived best guess defensive depth chart, I think as far as a young player or rookie player, players at it in the rookie draft. Saints are fairly good shape in the secondary, fairly good shape at the linebacker for the moment. Defensive line is probably where they would be looking. Any needs in the secondary. In fact, I think they're very good at linebacker. Any need in the secondary is probably can be addressed after the draft in free agency because there's still a lot of good safeties out there that remain unsigned. And it's the longer it takes, the more of a chance you're going to get a team friendly deal picking one of those guys up. So I think the main focus would be on the defensive line. I still think it's offense first, but I guess there's a scenario where when you look at the 13 picks before the Saints, 4 quarterbacks, 3 receivers, Brock Bowers are all taken in those 13 picks. That's 8 players right there. Leaving 5 remaining picks and kind of the 5 offensive linemen starting with all working all the way down to Latham. That's 13 picks. I doubt if it would plan out that way or work out that way, but it is possible which ones aren't taken and available at 14 out of that offensive mix are just not necessarily in the Saints' plans. They didn't get the guys they were targeting out of that kind of group, and plan B, so to speak, maybe would probably be the defensive line. And I think edge would be the starting point. And under that scenario or a similar scenario, you're going to have the top 3 guys are Latu, Dallas Turner, and Jared Verse, all very good football players. Latu's kind of the highest graded guy, and he kind of fits the size and mold of a Saints edge player. 6'5", 265. Turner, a little lighter at 242. Verse, 260. I think Latu and Verse are both also more in the style of what the Saints look for in defensive ends because, as we've mentioned before, they're supposed to bring pass rush and rush defense out of that position. Both those guys seem to have that kind of complete game. Turner is primarily an edge rusher to get pressure on the quarterback. Not that he's a bad run defender. I don't think he's as good as the other two. And probably at Alabama when he was playing there, a little less run defense responsibility like a lot of NFL teams do with their edge rushers, their elite edge rushers like Turner is that can really get to the quarterback kind of, you worry about getting to the quarterback, help out and run defense, but primarily one of the other 10 guys is going to support you in that. Any 3 of these, if they wanted to go that route, they would be used a little differently in the scheme. But even in the case of Turner, if you're worried about his rush defending against the rush, if you can get anything out of the 3 huge question marks of Foskey, Cam, and of course Chase Young, and hopefully all 3, so you have a normal edge rotation for the Saints defense. Turner's type of guy that as a rookie, a lot like Brzee was used earlier in the year when he first got there last year as being a more of a pass rusher than a run defender. Use him in the spots where 10, 12 times a game, the offense is throwing the ball. Get guys like that on the field and just turn them loose and see if they can go make some plays. The scenario that plays out where 2 or 3 of these guys are available likely means a lot of the Saints targets have already been taken in the first 13 picks. The only other possibility would be interior is also kind of it's just a thin spot for the Saints right now. Brzee, better against the pass than against the run, has been mentioned before. Shepard and Saunders, played solidly, but I don't know if you got enough from them last year, and you were expecting more when you signed them last year in free agency. And so you're hoping they're going to step up and provide what you were looking for. But if you're not certain, and in the situation where they may view that as a bigger need than some of the other positions we were talking about, there's two very good ones sitting there. They're both a little better as pass rushers than they are run defenders, but they're both fairly good run defenders. Murphy is slightly bigger, and they're both young. Um, Josiah Newton, I think he is more of the pass rush guy, but does bring some run defense. I think you're kind of getting another Brian Brzee with him. It sounds very, very similar. Murphy, on the other hand, I think brings up equal, and I don't want to make it sound like they're really uh, really deficient in any one or the other. I think they're both very solid, but I think Murphy's a little more. I kind of what I was seeing from him is if you remember when we had Sheldon Rankins, kind of a Rankins type guy, is a little better against the run, but can still bring a pass rush and athletic for his size. So there were times when we went a heavy uh, around 2018, 2019 with Sheldon Rankins, a very heavy defensive front where he actually kicked out and played edge and didn't do a bad job out there. Not something you want to do all the time, but it was a situational thing that the Saints could do. So I don't think defense is the route they're looking at 14 unless a situation 1 through 13 works out where their right type of player that's going to help the team the most is on the defensive side of the ball. It's probably going to be one of these five guys. Could be a corner. Do have some question marks about what the Lattimore situation is. And then you could potentially have some question marks coming up if Paulson Adebo actually makes it to free agency. Because if he plays well this year like he did last year and makes it to free agency, that could be another situation where the Saints find themselves next year at this time, sort of like they are at offensive tackle, looking around and going, we only really have one or two corners on the roster that can play on the outside. So there's always the possibility. There are a couple cornerbacks that might also fall in this range, but I think you're looking if it's going to hit on the defensive side, it's going to be one of the big edge rushers or one of these two interior defenders. So big announcement time, and it's right there on the bottom of the screen. Let's Talk Saints. I'll be doing a live version Sunday, April 28th, 7 p.m. That's Central Time. And we're going to do a draft recap. Also, secondary announcement, Let's Talk Saints will be dropping Monday instead of Tuesday next week. So be on the lookout for that. And I'll have a second announcement uh, regarding the draft itself on Monday afternoon. So to make sure you can keep up with everything going on, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification, rumblers. Please hit the follow. Comments below. Appreciate it. Been getting some good stuff from some people the last couple of weeks. Keep rolling. The more you can tell me what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, or what I'm completely missing the boat on, the better I can do this. So thanks for joining today. Till next time, peace out. Who dat?